So that's the idea. You know, there's no, that whole thing, what you want to understand, that whole street fighting, biting, poking in the eyes thing is a fear-based thing that people latch onto because they're really just scared. They're really insecure, scared human beings, and they latch onto that. And if that's where you're at, the answer out of that scared situation that your ego is in, is sports, is rolling around on the mat, and is training like we train. That'll actually give you real confidence, and you'll acquire some real skill, and you'll feel better about yourself as a human being, and you'll accomplish something healthy, something that I would encourage my children to do, or that you would encourage your kids to do, something that's good for everybody and good for your body. And in the process, you'll develop real fighting skills. That's one route. The other route is the scared, fear-based route, where you don't come on the mat and roll with people, especially if you're the instructor of the seafood, because you don't want to tap out, and you don't pummel, and you don't box, and you don't spar, and you're training only for street, and you're practicing eye gouging and biting, you become more and more paranoid and more scared. Actual predators, human beings that are real predators, they can smell that on you, and you're actually more of a target now than you were before. Because you can look at those guys walking down the street, and you can see already that he's a pussy. You can just feel it. So if you were inclined to go after somebody, those would be the first guys that go after. Because they're stuck in that fear-based paradigm. And the more you train in that direction, the more you stay in that path, the worse you get. That's why if you ever go into one of the traditional martial arts schools, the really traditional schools, or the traditional JKE schools, where they supposedly train for street and they don't like the sports guys and this and that, 9 times out of 10, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but 9 times out of 10, the instructor's a real dick. And there's a bunch of attitude there, and there's a hierarchy of people that are below you and above you, and it's just nonsense. And the more you stay in that, the worse it gets. And then somebody comes in, one of these guys come in, and they say, hey, we want to roll, we want to train a little bit, and they don't want to do that because they know they suck. And then they become even more scared, even more paranoid, even more fearful. And instead of becoming a more confident, happier human being, an upward spiral of self-actualization, it's a downward spiral. And they're more inclined to beat their girlfriend and kick their dog from martial arts than less inclined. So it's actually counterproductive. So the whole thing is bad. It's bad from the ground up. So when I talk about training for street fighting and self-defense, it's very important that I point that out to you. Because it's real easy to manipulate those guys. Because they're scared and they're insecure. It would be so easy for me to market towards them and to teach them tactical street fighting, because we can use our image of Straight Blast Gym of producing fighters, and they want that image. They just don't want to train the way we do. You know how easily I could capitalize on that and make thousands of dollars on these guys? But it wouldn't be good for them, and it wouldn't be good for me. It would be the worst thing I could do. Best thing I could do when I talk to those people is encourage them to train the way we are now, today. Be friendly about it, have a good time, have fun. Who cares if you tap out? You're not going to get better if you don't tap out. That is meaningless. What matters is that you come into the gym and you train, along with everybody else. Leave the titles at home. There's no such thing as a seafood. It's nonsense. Guru, what does that mean? You're teaching the class because you're a little bit better than the other people in the class with this particular information, and the respect from the students will come because you're better than they are at that, and you have something to offer. The information stands on its own. You don't need a title. You don't need a hierarchy. And in that paradigm, in that training environment, everybody is on an upward spiral. You're going to become more confident, more healthy, more happy. That will translate into your presence as you're walking around on the street, and you're far less likely to be a victim of crime. Because I can look and see, carnivore. That's not somebody I want to pick on. When you see Randy Couture or Hickson Gracie walking down the street, that's not the guy you're going to go mug, eh? And then pick up some of the magazines and look at some of the street fighting guys with all their knives and stuff. I mean, if he wasn't carrying a knife or a gun on him, you knew he didn't have a weapon, he'd be the first guy you'd want to beat up. He's the kid that got stuck in the bathroom, got his head put in the toilet every day. And instead of actually coming onto the mat and being an athlete, which I have nothing, you know what? That happens all the time in school, and there's nothing to be ashamed of there. Take those kids and you put them in an environment like this, they become fucking ass kickers. They become some of the best fighters I have, and some of the best human beings in this environment. But you take those kids and you put them in that street fighting environment, and they stay their whole life being that scared kid that got their head stuck in the bathroom toilet. So those are two very different routes. That's the thing I want to emphasize. So today was advertised as a self-defense day. Now you know what I feel about self-defense. That's my opinion on it. Besides, how do you train gouging somebody's eye every day? Are you going to stick your hands in a coconut or something? boca watermelon. You can train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the boxing and wrestling delivery systems for the rest of your life. And we can still put in the self-defense drills, which we'll do today. We can simulate the biting, what to do if somebody pokes you in the eye or grabs your nuts or something. Put that in there, no problem. Doesn't change the delivery system. You just have to be aware of it. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions on that? You're missing my point.
Okay.
I'd rather have guys that come in off the street that are not athletic and can go in and do a local match and do really well. That's far more of an accomplishment than taking guys that are already college wrestlers. You have no idea the level these athletes are at already.
Okay.
Teaching them jiu-jitsu and putting them in the cage. It's a lot harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys can go in there without any submission or striking and sometimes win. Just on. Remember what I told you about the 4 points of a great fighter? They've got the first 2 down. And they've got skill. And one of the most important ranges, they can control whether the fight stays standing or to the mat. And there's not much you can do about it. There may not be much they can do once they get it down there, but maul you. But that's fucking good enough sometimes. If you break down any of the arts that actually will work in a fight, so the functional arts, the combat athletic arts, like judo, boxing, wrestling, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Sambo, those arts, the one thing all those arts have in common is there's no such thing as an advanced technique. It doesn't exist. Okay? So when you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you get that Kimura or that triangle, it's the exact same triangle at a white belt level or a blue belt level as at a black belt level. They've just been doing it for 10 years or more, that's all. When you throw a jab, it's the same jab Lennox Lewis throws. He's just a lot better than you are because he's been doing it a lot longer. Okay? When you put kids in freestyle wrestling, you have a bunch of 5-year-olds and they're learning a double leg, guess what? That's the same double leg the guys do in the Olympics at the highest level possible. They've just been doing it for a lot longer. Right? You see the good Olympic judo players, most of them have 1 or 2 throws they hit every time. They've been doing those throws for 15 or 20 years. That is fighting. So anytime you get involved in a system where there's beginning, intermediate, and advanced techniques, then immediately you know somebody's bullshitting you. You're being lied to. Because there's no such thing. There's only fundamentals. You learn those fundamentals in the first part of your training, and you spend the rest of your life perfecting them in anything that's going to be functional.